Welcome to Behind the Scenes, the podcast where we delve into the diverse perspectives of the brilliant minds at Entura, one of the world's most experienced power and water consulting firms. This podcast comes to you today from Nipaluna, Hobart, the traditional country of the Moina people of the Southeast Nation. We acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people and their ongoing connection to culture and country, and the traditional owners of other lands people are joining from today. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. Join us as we explore the stories of talented individuals shaping a sustainable future, discover who they are, uncover the intricacies of their role, and explore what drives their passion. Get ready for an insider's view into the heartbeat of Entura and the journey toward a more sustainable tomorrow. My guest today is Jaretha Lombaard. Yoretta is a senior dams engineer working in our dams and geotech team. Growing up in South Africa, Yoretta had dreams of graphic design and architecture before finally settling on engineering. She talks passionately about learning from manual foundational skills as a young engineer and evolving technology, saying yes to opportunities and giving it your all. A transition across 3 countries and 2 stints in quarantine saw Yoretta land in Australia just in time for a full lockdown. Throughout all of this, she maintains a positive outlook and focuses intentionally on fostering positivity in everything she does. Welcome.
Thank you.
First question is always the same. Who are you?
Well, my husband dared me to say I am Batman, but I figured that's probably not the correct answer. So, yes, I am Jaretha Lombaard. I'm originally from South Africa, and at the moment I'm embracing life as an Australian. Been in the country for about 5 years now, and previous to that, obviously born and bred, went to school, university, and started my career in South Africa as a dam engineer.
Great. Let's expand on that. Going back to your growing up and your schooling, where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
So I grew up in a place called Centurion, which is close to Pretoria or Johannesburg, for those that are not familiar with South Africa. It's pretty much the economic hub of South Africa, right in the middle, so never really close to the ocean or all of those sorts of things.
And going through school, did you have a natural bent towards mathematics and engineering and problem solving, that sort of thing?
Yes, I was always more technically inclined. That being said, when I was in primary school, I really wanted to become a vet, but that dream faded away because my mom said I'm probably too emotional about animals and love them too much. And then graphic design and architecture became my next best choice. So I actually applied for architecture before for university, and I didn't get accepted. So I figured, civil engineering might be the next best thing. And if I don't like it, I can always try and switch over back to architecture. And lo and behold, here I am. So,
but I mean, that's an interesting mix, isn't it? That you've obviously had that interest in science and then in the designing, and kind of engineering brings the two of those together.
Yeah. And strangely enough, you would think as an engineer, I'm probably not very creative, but I actually had visual arts at school. And if you see my project and so on, you'll probably see a lot of color, a lot of concepts and sketches and stuff like that. I'm a very visual person. So it is strange that I've got that mathematical side of me, but then also the very artistic side.
You've gone through this schooling, you've picked civil engineering out of your multiple different choices that you've got there, and you've started university. How was that journey?
So a thought that just came to mind is I was always very academically inclined, and my mom always told me that, watch out, university is not going to be easy. Don't expect that you're going to go do good. No one worries about students. It's all about yourself. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, Went to uni, went and did my first mathematics test, and I scored like 40%. And like I said, being a more academically inclined person, I was like, oh, goodness, this is so bad. And then my mom's words rang so true to me, like, no one really cares when you're at university. When you're at school, like, everyone's still making sure that you're progressing and doing all those things. So that was like a good wake-up call. And then from that day onwards, I'm like, cool, I'm going to, head first give this the best go that I can do. That being said, in South Africa, the engineering students are probably the students that work the hardest, but they also make up for it after test weeks.
Study hard and party hard.
Exactly.
Yep, very good. And it was fairly smooth sailing after that shock of coming into the adult world of having to be responsible for yourself and your own results.
Yeah, it was. There's an interesting backstory to that as well. Like I've mentioned, I didn't initially plan to go study civil engineering. It just happened because my other choices got taken away from me, if I can put it like that. So after my first year, coincidentally, my dad walked into one of his colleagues in the grocery shop, and he's like, we've got some bursaries or scholarships available at our company, which was at that stage called BKS. Would your daughter be interested in applying for that bursary? And my dad came home and he's like, I've spoken to this guy, would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's give it a go and see what happens. And I remember I had to go for an interview at the company from university, and it was probably like 2 kilometers away or so. And when I got back to my car, I accidentally forgot my lights on. So the battery was absolutely dead. And I was, back in 2010. So, cell phones and stuff were there, but you didn't use it as often as what we do now. So I was trying to figure out, how do I get my car? How do I get to this place within the next 10 minutes? And luckily someone actually assisted and helped me jumpstart the car. And I rushed into the company, and I was like 5 minutes late. I'm like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm so sorry I'm late. I had all these car troubles and stuff. And then the lady was just like, relax. It's just going to be, very calm and all of those sorts of things. So, I had the opportunity to get a scholarship. And then as part of that scholarship, you had to do vacation work. And then after university, you got the opportunity to then select a position where you want to be in the company. So transitioning from university into the real world, I guess, was a smooth transition for me because I had that opportunity to do some vacation work and so on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a luxury too, to be able to go through your university knowing that you've got an opportunity at the end of it, rather than having to, apply as a grad with everybody else. So that's fantastic. Yeah. And what sort of work were you doing in those initial roles?
Quite a few different roles. I must admit, the reason why I ended up in the hydraulics and dam engineering side of thing, or water side of thing, is as part of these vacation work periods, you had to move between the various disciplines at the company. And I chose the water department simply because every day at 10 o'clock they would have tea time and someone would have rusk and cookies there. But that being said, I did anything from like formatting documents to counting pipelines on a CAD drawing to working night shift on a road project where they were pouring or resurfacing the road in the middle of winter. So that was interesting as well.
So a bit of on-site work, a bit of office work, really learning the ropes and the basics and the foundational stuff and how it all goes together.
That being said, it was only like 2 weeks at a time. Once in July and then again in December. So in total, probably 6 rotations that I went through.
Great.
4 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, nice foundation though. Yeah. So you finished uni and you've gone into full-time work. Have you gone straight back into that same company?
Yes. Yep. So BKS at that stage was then bought over by AECOM. Mm-hmm. So as I joined the company, that was the first year that they operated as AECOM. So went straight from uni into my first position as a graduate engineer with them. Conveniently, they moved their offices from Pretoria to Centurion, so it was only 4 kilometres away from home.
And what sort of projects were you working on? Was there a particular draw to certain types of projects? You mentioned there was roadway projects as well as others. So how did you kind of develop your specialisation in dams?
Yeah. So like I said, they gave you an opportunity before you started your career to say, well, in what department would you like to be? And I chose water. And I originally started off with water resource management. And at that stage, the dams department and the water resourcing department was combined. So I started doing water resources things. My first job, and I would never forget it, and I'm so grateful for it until today, is I spent 3 months formatting and reading through technical design reports.
Oh.
And I'm like, you're the grad, you do the formatting, so ask me anything about Word and I can probably do it for you. So like I said, the water resources and dams departments were combined. Did a lot of water resourcing modeling. I remember one time, I don't know if they gave us these things to do, just to test out our resilience as grads. But I remember we had to calculate the surface area of dams within a water catchment zone. And they literally gave us maps. If I say they, that's the senior engineers, and grid paper. And I'm like, well, you colour in and count the amount of blocks that the water surfaces or the small farm dams cover. And that's how we've then came up with a combined water surface area for the yield models and stuff that we had to do at that stage. But then as part of that, I started working with some of the dam engineers, and that just then came naturally. And I started doing more and more and more work with the dam engineers at AECOM and started to go into that line of thing.
It's interesting, isn't it? I want to kind of pick up this little theme of what might be seen as kind of menial work, the formatting, but then also that grid paper task. Do you think that had an impact on how you do things now? I mean, you mentioned you're quite proficient in Word, but going through that process of doing those tasks, did that help you foundationally?
Yes, I would definitely say so. Even if it's something as mediocre as just formatting reports, you do still pick up on stuff. You're like, oh, okay, this is how a report layout should look. This is the type of words that they use. And sure, you're not going to get it right the first time that you try and write a report yourself, but at least you've seen it before and you've got all these examples that you had to work with. So I would definitely say it contributed a lot. And if you've worked with me, you would know I'm very particular on my report formatting and report structure and those sorts of things, and getting the message across as clearly communicated as possible and as efficiently as possible. And just to allude to the grid paper exercise, I've learned, and I still apply that to my daily life as well, is if you can do something as simple and, easy as that, and you can do it well, people will probably ask you to do more and more complicated things because they know you can do the small things well. So you build that trust and so on.
And is that a process or a theme that you bring into training the younger people coming through? When you have grads that are sitting under you, are you training them in a similar sort of way?
I try to. They can probably tell you whether they agree with that or not. But yeah, that's the way that that's the message that I try to carry over as well. It's like, look, if you can do the small things well, it means that people are going to trust you to do the bigger, more complicated things as well too.
So there you are. You're gravitating towards the dams engineering team, and I assume you've started to work on a few projects. You've enjoyed the work. There's something in dams engineering that you've enjoyed and liked.
Yes. So I had excellent mentors, both within the water resources and dam space. And our senior engineer, called Dani Badenhorst, he sat across from me, or just next to me at some point in the office. We had open plan offices. And he's like, oh, I need to go and do a dam inspection of a dam that has just been constructed. Would you like to go with me? And then you can write the site report and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And we went to site and we had to inspect the intake tower. And when I saw the size of those pipes, which are 2 meters in diameter, and you're standing next to those pipes and so on, and the next moment they open up these sleeve valves, which discharge, I think, about 23 or 25 cubic meters per second. It's quite a lot. I was just like, yeah, this is awesome. I want to do this the rest of my life. And it's just the scale and the size of dams, and I guess the nicheness of and individuality of dam engineering. It's just it just drew me towards that.
And was it the initial phase, the concept design, the detailed design, the construction side of things? Was there a particular part that you were more drawn to, or did you like the whole process?
So I don't think I had the choice necessarily. It was at that stage mostly feasibility design projects. So got a lot of experience on like how do you select dam types and how do you design a dam conceptually without going into the details and those sorts of things. So like I said, had a lot of experience on that side of things, and then slowly started to get into more of a detailed design perspective. I had to, at some point, do the bill of quantities for a construction project that was coming up. And I decided, well, I actually want construction experience. And I went to Donnie, and I'm like, Donnie, you know that project that's coming up in Mozambique? I know you want an assistant resident engineer on site. Would you mind if I put my CV through to that? And he's like, yeah, sure. Let's submit your CV and see what comes from that. And ended up that I got selected and then had the opportunity to experience construction on a dam project. So.
Sounds like it was a fairly wide and varied group of experiences working in South Africa. What are some of the most memorable projects and some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Some of the most interesting projects that I worked on was the Umkomazi water project, and that was the construction of, or the design, feasibility design of a new dam in a province called KwaZulu-Natal, which would then have a pipeline for water supply to wherever, supply tunnels, if I can put it like that, to a balancing dam and then to the distribution network. So that project in itself was massive. I actually went through the list of reports recently, and I think there was like 23 or 24 reports that we had to prepare as part of that project. So that was a very memorable project in the sense that that was the first dam project that I worked on, and that was also one of the reasons why I got taken to this dam completion inspection and going into the intake tower, because I was given the task of designing the pipelines and so on in this intake tower for this new proposed dam. And the most challenging thing for me on that was, at university, you learn how to do things, but they give you all the input. Like, you've got a pipeline of this size and you need to supply this much water. What is the velocity in a pipeline? So get that. And in the real world, they design the intake tower. And you're like, okay, what's the flow requirements? What's that? You have to figure it out. That's part of the project. So it's getting or closing that gap between what you learn at university and applying that in the real world. And then another project that I really enjoyed working on was what we call the Noordoeverfuwelsdrift project. It was a proposed dam on the Orange River, which is the border between South Africa and Namibia. And it was a multinational project between South Africa and Namibia trying to get this water supply. And one of the biggest challenges was trying to satisfy both South Africa and Namibia in terms of what they want for the dam, because there was different key things that they needed to, or that each country had to focus on, or what they wanted to get out of the project. So managing the various stakeholders and so on was quite challenging.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And it's not a challenge that we necessarily face in Australia, where you're trying to, work across two country borders. So that's quite unique. There's obviously been somewhere along the line a decision that you wanted to leave South Africa, and whether that was come to Australia or whether there was other options. Talk me through that period of time.
So if you asked me in 2018, would I ever leave South Africa? I was, no, there's no way. I'm staying put. I am not going anywhere, and all of those sorts of things. And then I got the opportunity, like I said, to work on this construction project, which was in Mozambique. Now, Mozambique is a bordering country to South Africa. And as part of that, that really put me out of my comfort zone because it was literally in the middle of nowhere. The closest town was 2 hours away. There was no shops, no groceries, anything close by, no medical facilities. There was a small clinic and so on. And I spent 2 years on that project, and just that adventure, that getting, putting yourself out of your comfort zone and learning new things and just accepting the challenge or embracing the challenges that has to offer. I then told my boyfriend, now husband at that time, I really enjoyed this idea of getting used to different cultures and different countries and so on. Maybe we should, go spend a year or two abroad and see how it is. So we actually ended up applying for jobs in Australia and the Netherlands, I think. And it always came back with, you don't have a visa or you don't have working rights, so unfortunately we're not interested. And then COVID hit. And then I'm like, well, okay, that's obviously not going to happen. Let's carry on with this Mozambican thing. Go back to South Africa when that's done and whatever. And we were also stuck in Mozambique at that stage because of COVID. We couldn't return to South Africa. And a lady that I've met at a conference way back when sent me a Facebook message. And she's like, hey, we've got a position for a dams engineer in Australia. Would you be interested? I'm like, sure. Sent my CV, had an interview in the mid-hours because of the time difference between South Africa or Mozambique and Australia. Eventually got the job, gave my husband a call. I'm like, hey, I've got this opportunity. Are you coming along? And he's like, yeah. And we're like, great, let's go. And it just then went from there onwards. And I think one of the key things that I've learned from this experience is never say never. Because within 2 years, I've changed my mind from, no, I'm not leaving to South Africa. Like, look, we've got this excellent opportunity that's got handed to us. We would be stupid if we don't take it. And now I'm here.
And it sounds like there was a bit of a culture shock in terms of, maybe in terms of general culture, but also in terms of the engineering standards or ways of doing things and practices. Was that something that kind of took you by surprise?
Yes. It was a bit of a shock trying to read through all the ANCOLD guidelines and not understanding a word what they are trying to say. Yes. In short, yes. It was a bit of a shock. But you just put your head down and go forward. And eventually you'll come out on the other side knowing more than what you thought you would ever know, looking 5 years back.
And when you started to get into those guidelines and they weren't making sense and they were confusing, did you have doubts?
No. It's just like I've always been like that, where it's like, yeah. And if you ask me, have you done this before? I'll probably tell you no, not yet. So I've always had that attitude of, I don't know how to do it now, but give me a bit of time and I'll figure it out. And that just stuck with me, like just perseverance and resilience.
So you've landed in Australia, you've got your head around the different ways that we do things. You're now thriving. What is the work that is really interesting you these days?
Solving the puzzle. And I think that's always been the thing with dam engineering, is a dam design is not the same for any dam. Every dam is unique. And especially now with dam engineering, having to not have the luxury of designing a new dam from scratch. You have to retrofit and upgrade existing dams. And a lot of the time, there's no information available as to what is actually going on below ground surface or what you can see with your eyes. And how do we actually get everything to fit together so that we don't increase the risk position of the dam, still keep it safe, and still achieve the objective of the dam upgrade or whatever it is that we need to do.
What sort of challenges are you looking forward to solving in the next 5 years?
The project that I'm working on at the moment, it's a dam upgrade, which will probably include some sort of spillway, additional spillway. And if you look at the options that we are looking at the moment, there's no clear winner. All of the options have got their pros and cons, and trying to solve that puzzle of how are we going to solve this problem, how are we going to make this safer, and then also getting the buy-in from various stakeholders, because it's not just an engineering problem, it's a water supply, it's a stakeholder perception, all of those sorts of things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing that. So, and just keeping control of all the wheels turning at the same time. Like, you have to constantly be aware of what's going on the project, and what is the next steps to get to your eventual milestone.
As you get more senior in your engineering career, the mix between pure engineering and that stakeholder management and engagement piece, it kind of shifts. How are you managing that shift?
I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to that since the early stages of my career. That Fuels Drift project that I spoke about, at that stage, I was also given the opportunity to be the assistant team manager. So from my second year as being an engineer, I also already got exposed to that stakeholder management and those sorts of things. And I think that's one of the biggest misperceptions of engineering, is that you just sit in your little cubicle and do a lot of maths. It's not that. It's so much more about how do you manage stakeholders and how do you communicate your solution to them. So yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. And you keep on learning new things as you go, and learning how to work with various different people and how to manage expectations. And the best way of doing that, I would say, is working with even more senior people and observing what they do and how to handle, difficult situations, and then trying to apply that to your own work life.
It's a very rewarding but challenging career. How do you balance career with life, family, and everything else?
Having boundaries. I think that's the most important thing. And deciding what's important for you. Is it your career? Is it your family? Or is it both? I've made the active decision that I really love my job, but I also really love my family. So I've got a hard boundary of, when I put down my laptop at the end of the day, that's it. I don't think about work. The same over weekends. Obviously, there are days where you have to work a little bit extra and so on, but then also being present and intentional with both your work and your life or personal life is one of the biggest things that I try and focus on.
That's great.
And and adding to that is have something that you can focus on a daily basis that takes your mind off work, whether it's going to the gym or going for a walk or just noticing the small things in life. Make sure that you see a positive thing or focus on something beautiful every single day. And that will eventually, in my case, keep you positive. And yeah.
I love that. Yeah. That's great. So we've had a great conversation around the whole journey of your engineering life. I just want to bring us back to that grid paper. And we talked a little bit about how that was foundational and how you still carry those lessons from that period through to today. Technology is changing rapidly. The advent of AI is getting more and more powerful, and it's going to become more and more important in the work that we do. How do you see that technology being integrated and that journey from, or the importance of still being able to do things manually whilst still being able to use the technology?
So I think AI is great in making our life more efficient and moving quicker and fast and all of those sorts of things. If you think about 20, 30 years ago, you still had people drawing up and maybe doing grid papers like we had to. But nowadays, you can do that so much more efficiently with AI, and you would be, falling behind if you don't embrace it and ride the wave. And I definitely see a lot of benefit in applying that in the work that we do. That being said, and one of the things that I'm very passionate about is critical thinking, is don't rely on AI to develop you as a young engineer. Yes, use it as a tool, but don't rely on it. Make sure you develop that critical thinking, because that's what's going to set engineers apart from an AI tool in the future. And the only way that you can do that is always asking questions. Be curious, because curiosity or certainty kills curiosity. Or if you rely on AI and take that as certain, you're going to become less and less curious. And curiosity means innovation and thinking of new stuff and so on. So yeah, that would be my key message to any young engineer is train your critical thinking. Don't be afraid to ask questions and ask why more than you think you should, because that develops what I would say a good, well-rounded engineer.
What advice would you give to young engineers, and particularly young female engineers, who are looking to either get into this space and take advantage of the opportunities that engineering, but also this field-based construction-type engineering offers?
So I'll go back to what I've mentioned before, is put your hand up for anything that you can think of, whether it's a very small, simple project. Do it well, give it your best, because like I said before, that will automatically open up doors for you going forward. On the young women or female engineering perspective, my biggest advice is don't see yourself as a female engineer. See yourself as an engineer. Don't say, I'm a woman, so I probably shouldn't be doing this, or, I'm afraid to do this. Don't think of it that way. Just think of yourself as an engineer and focus on being the best engineer that you can be.
Great advice. Yoretta, thank you very much for joining us, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for joining us on this insightful journey behind the scenes at Entura. We hope you've gained valuable insights into the incredible individuals driving sustainable innovation. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations as we continue to explore the people and stories shaping our sustainable future. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and find out more about the work we do at entura.com.au. Until next time, this is Mark signing off from Entura's Behind the Scenes, where sustainability meets inspiration.